Today we're going to have a look at one of our whimsical farm projects, and this is one of my favorite. This is something I've been needing to do for a long time. I always dread sharpening my chainsaw because you have to fight with it and you try to hold it and chase it around on a stump or on a table or on the tailgate of a truck, and sometimes you get it sharp and sometimes you feel like you're just wasting your time. So I thought, I am sick and tired of that. So I wanted to build something in a whimsical manner. That means you just on a whim. So here's where it started, right here. Just use your imagination. And we're going to say one piece of 2x6 scrap lumber. You can see it's got a weird angle cut on the bottom. Nobody cares. This is one of those things where form follows function. So the first thing I did was take an axe and I trimmed off some of the rotted part of this stump. This stump has been burned real well, so the bugs don't want to eat it, and it's going to be here for years to come. So anyway, I took the 2x6. I had some headlock type fasteners left over from a project. These things are 8 inches long. They've got a special spider drive, looks like a power takeoff shaft. And I put one way down here on the bottom. That became my pivot one. And then I put me a level here on the side, and I began to level it out that way and got it exactly straight up and down. Then the next step was to make sure it was level this way. So I put the level on the face of the board. All I was working with was one 2x6 here. So I got that level by shimming a little piece of plywood in between here and screwing and fooling around until I finally got it plumb and level and square and flush and everything you could do. So the next step was I wanted to have me a place to set my chainsaw. So that called for the other part of that scrap lumber. So I laid my chainsaw on top of that nice surfboard so it could relax. And that was pretty good. I leveled it real good and then put me in some 3.5-inch screws. One there. I shimmed underneath it a little bit. One here. And then one over here. So it's got plenty of screws to hold it to this old stump. So then when I went to put the chainsaw on there, I noticed that the chainsaw blade itself was not level. So I set the saw down, which I'm going to show you in a minute. Just hold on a second. I'm going to show you the saw. I put the saw on here. Even though the board was level, the body of the saw wouldn't let the bar be exactly level. And if you've ever sharpened a chain and trying to run that file over it, you know you do not want to be doing no roller coaster rides. You need that chain to be tight and straight and square and plumb and level. And that way when you make a cut, your cut stays true. So I added this little feature. This is a piece of 3/4 inch premium oak. I pre-drilled it, got the chamfer so that the pre-cut hole so the screw could go down in there. And that keeps his tail up just a little and gets the bar level. So what'd you do next? Well, the next thing I had to do was I knew that I couldn't have my bar against this clamped on this wood because I wouldn't be able to rotate the chain. So I found me another little block of wood, 2x4, and I laid it in there and put the chainsaw in place and made sure that was kind of centered up on the bar and not touching the chain. That's kind of important. I pre-drilled them because you know if you've ever run a long screw into a piece of 2x4, all it's going to do is turn into split kindling for you for your wood stove. So pre-drill both of those. You notice it looks like it's at a slight angle. You'll see why here just in a minute. And then I began to sharpen the chain. I put it up there with a couple little plastic clamps from Lowe's, and I was so happy. I built this little doodad. It's just another block of that 2x6 that was left over. I put 2 big old long honking 3.5-inch screws from underneath and into it. No splits, no nothing. It's rock solid. It's solid as a pump bolt. Then I put this little EMT electrical connector, and that was touching the front right in the center of the bar. So when you're running your it like that, it won't let that front end of that saw move. But when I went to sharpen the other side, it was moving this way on me. So I didn't have any more of these, and I looked around and I thought, boy, I need something like a hook, something that's like a cast iron, something real strong hook that just the round part of the hook could touch the blade. And so I found this, and this cast iron hook touches the blade. Also, the bar, should say, not the blade, the bar, center of the bar. And I thought, well, look at there. It's got 2 nice little holes in it. I could just anchor that, and if I needed to adjust it, I could move it around or whatever I needed to do. So I'm gonna go grab a saw. You gotta see how nice this thing came out with a saw. So if you can hold for 3, 2, 1, then like magic, the saw shows up. So let's start on the back end. This is how I get it set up. I bring that saw tail so that he's on the back of the surfboard here. Just even with that, don't have to be exact, but pretty close to the back end. Then I take a simple little Irwin clamp. You can see one of them little rubber jaw Irwins. Put it right there, clamp it down a little bit. Don't have to be nuclear because this is plastic. And the body of this saw has a suspension system in it. So that's gonna have a little bit of give in here, but no big deal. And then this clamp, this is some of that metamorphosizing that I did. When I put this first board up here, it's a 2x6. I had it way up here. It was way up here, about that tall. The problem was I had no room for my clamp. So you can see where I came in here and scribed some lines and calculated and scratched my head and thought about it and then cut that off. So this Irwin clamp, when you put him in place, he has just enough ride height to where the chain doesn't touch there. And look where that clamp just happens to land. It lands right on the bar and does not touch the chain. So then the last thing is, this just drops down between these two. So now if I've got my nice sharpening device and I'm pushing that direction, that means this bar cannot move. See how tight a tolerance that is? It cannot move that direction. And when you're getting on the other side and pulling this way, now it can't move this way. So, well, that's too tight to get it in. It drops right in. No problem at all. I left enough tolerance. You can drop it right through there. Say, what's that level sitting up there for? Remember I told you before that that bar needs to be level when you do your sharpening? That's the purpose of having this little kickboard, this little floorboard on the back of your surfboard. You got to have that little unit right there. Now, I'll show you what I thought about doing originally. This turned out to be plan B for me, which was really a better plan, I think, than the other. My first plan was to come right in here and put one of those screw into a piece of wood screws that has lag on one side and machine thread on the other, and then I was going to drill a hole through my bar and have it where I could drop that in. There's only one problem with that. It would only be good for my saw with this bar, and I didn't want to be that specific because my sweet wife also, she has a Farm Boss. Say, does it fit? I don't know. I haven't thrown it on there yet. You'll have to wait till the next episode to see that, but I want you to see this. This is so cool. You just take this little tool right here and you look for the arrow. That way you know which way you're going. You pick you a tooth. In this case, it's going to be that tooth. Let's see, this one right here. And then you drop this in place and make sure your round file is against that tooth. And let me back up. I'm going to back up a tooth. And it is so easy to cut with this. You just literally just make a stroke and you're going the right direction. It's hard to do with the camera because I have to get my face away from it to see it, but it can't move anywhere. And the closer you get on this end, this is actually my favorite place. And normally I got my other hand on this bar, and you just run that over that like that, and it won't take long. That thing will be so sharp. This is by far the sharpest sharpening job I've ever done on a chainsaw, by far. These are so sharp that you gotta be careful or you'll be bleeding. So anyway, those that know how to run a sharpener understand what I'm talking about. This is already sharp, so I'm just kind of showing you how I do it. Now, of course, when you flip it over and go the other way, notice again that you are easily making sure that you don't have any movement down here. That's kind of important. So just drag it this way and you got a good way to sharpen it without pulling it. Now, the other thing I really like about this is you can service the saw here. So if I need to tighten the chain, instead of having to chase it all over the place, look what I got. I left myself plenty of room to operation table here. I can break that loose, break this loose. Then you go in there, you know how these work. You go in here with your screwdriver and you can tighten your chain and loosen it. I always keep mine pretty tight. You're supposed to have it where has a little bit of a gap, but not much gap. It needs to stay. You may think that's too much, but I'm having to pull. Chain's pretty tight, but it should roll. It should roll unless you got your bar lock on. And it's in good shape. So there's the tip. Say, I bet that thing's hard to get loose from that after you're done. Well, let's check that. So you pull one clamp here. Watch this. All right, watch close now. Here we go. One clamp. Oh boy, that was tough. Throw him aside. Come over here to the tail. Get him out of harm's way. Pull the tail clamp. Oh, that one was tough. And then you reach and grab the handle right here. And doesn't look like it was that hard. So there's a nice razor sharp saw ready to go into action. And what about reloading? I bet it's tough to reload, isn't it? Oh yeah, you got to have that one hand here, and then you got to drop that down in there like that. Got to make sure the tail is lined up. Put one clamp on there. Come over here, put a clamp on here. Say, well, how well aligned is that with everything? Well, if you go on the far side, let's see, make sure that's down in there all the way. Him needs to go down in there. Just another skosh. There him is. We go on the other side, take a look. See how that wood's got a little angle on it? That wood fits that perfect. And that fits perfect. That's good and solid. Solid as a pump bolt. Very solid. This is solid. The 3/4 inch oak on the back, he's not going anywhere. Oh, that's solid. It's just a very simple little device. And I know it's one of those whimsical things. It's not beautiful. As they say though, form follows function. And I'm all about the function. So what this does for me is it gives me a place out in the yard where I drag my wood up. My splitting device is right over there. And I just drag a big pile of wood up here. I can cut it up. I can sharpen my chain as I go. And I love it. It's simple. And when this stump rots out, I can unscrew this with a couple of screws and 3 or 4 screws there on the top and take the whole thing. This is unitized together. 3 heavy screws right here hold this vertical to this horizontal. 1, 2 screws here, and I can take it to any stump. I could take it to a workbench, and it is just a very handy, cheap tool. You can buy clamps all day long off of Amazon for about 25 bucks. They're a chunk of iron with a finger nut clamp thing on it, and you drive it down into a stump somewhere out in the woods, and you can go that route. But these boards were free. They were getting ready to go on a burn pile, so I kept the $20 bill in my pocket, used some scraps, and this is what I came up with. Hope you enjoy it, and welcome back to Whimsical Farm. Come on back for the Cook Shack on the next video. Over and out for now.